I would like to start by sharing the story of Caroline, told in her own words, and thousands of others who were a coach but transformed into a pumpkin. At last, after 5 years' study, including 2 years of cramming for the competitive entrance examination, I got my degree, a hard-earned master's in business studies, which I thought would open doors for me. I was over the moon. This was the fulfillment of a dream. A year later, I had come down to earth with a bump. The only doors that had opened were those of a large retail chain, which took me on as a part-time checkout operator on minimum wage. They wanted to test my capacity for work, and after 4 months, I was promoted to departmental sales assistant, a job which brought in 1,500 euros gross in a good month. I was promised further opportunities and wanted to become a sales manager for my department because I was interested in management. My boss promised me an appraisal to decide whether I was ready for this, but he was transferred elsewhere a few weeks before it was due. Inevitably, the store manager hadn't been informed of my application and said he hadn't made me any promises, which I found somewhat discouraging. And as I have a new manager each year, it's always back to square one. The result? After 6 years, I am still no further forward. Caroline gave me a rueful smile, eyeing me over her teacup and concluding, "And as for all the knowledge I crammed into my head over those 5 years of study, I've barely used any of it." Naturally, I felt sorry for her. Here was yet another of the many stories I had heard of brilliant studies, undertaken with the utmost application, that turned out to be pumpkins rather than a gilded coach to success. It's the same thing time and again. Academic qualifications are supposed to open doors and ensure a certain level of income, as well as giving you a sound basis of knowledge to draw on in your future occupation. In reality, the doors tend to remain stubbornly closed, salaries are low, and all that knowledge is forgotten in just a few months as it wastes away in the corner of your brain. What is more, the loans to finance your studies and the time spent getting a degree rather than working can be very costly compared with taking a shorter course and starting work sooner. Even though it is true that you can hope to earn a slightly better salary after a more extended program of study. Nevertheless, by enrolling in this business school, ranked 12th in her country, a good compromise between reputation and value for money, Caroline thought she was giving herself a head start in her professional career. Maybe Caroline's is an isolated case. Maybe Caroline could have shown more initiative, or been savvier. She could perhaps have made multiple applications, or pulled more strings, or created a buzz on social media with a photograph of herself and a seal in a bikini on an ice floe. Maybe. However, in reality, hers is by no means an isolated case. Here follow a few facts. According to a 2018 report by analysts Burning Glass Technologies, 43% of U.S. college graduates are overqualified for their first job. 2/3 of these students are still doing a job for which they are overqualified 5 years later, while 3/4 are still doing a job that is beneath their abilities after 10 years. The situation is even worse in the UK, where 49% of graduates started in a position for which they were overqualified in 2017. So, Caroline is just one example among millions of a new generation promised the moon, provided they didn't break the sacrosanct rule. Get your high school diploma and go as far as you can in your studies.